Welcome back to the Garden with Joe and Holly radio show. Thank you for being with us. It's time to learn a little bit about who we are as the hosts. We're getting close to wrapping up Season 8 here. One more show following this one next week, and the season will have been completed for 8 years now. So we figured this would be a good opportunity to sit down with you and share with you and answer some of the questions that you may have for us. So I'll start with this one. Holly, how did you get into gardening?
So I grew up in the city.
You can say what city, it's okay.
And we had, no. And we had, you might know, you might not know. It's a mystery. Uh-huh. We've mentioned it before. And we had this small backyard, a very small backyard, and we had a small backyard garden.
How small was it?
It was the size of a postage stamp.
Okay.
No, we had this very small backyard, and my parents always grew flowers, but then when I got, I don't know, probably into like middle school, I think, maybe high school-ish, somewhere in that range, we started growing vegetables, and we had this 4x8 size vegetable garden. And we grew, I remember tomatoes, peas, green beans, zucchini, peppers. There's probably a few other things.
So a 4x8, that's a sheet of plywood, or basically a queen-size bed.
Like that's a twin, I think like a twin, oh, maybe a queen size.
It's a queen size, yeah. That's about how big you're talking about.
Yeah. And it was very manageable. I remember we would make zucchini bread from the zucchini, and then the tomatoes. Oh, yeah, we did. We grew cucumbers too. And I never grew starts, so I didn't know that buying starts or starting seeds was a thing.
And I didn't know that you could, I'd never heard of such a thing. We always started starts, yeah.
So we were like the traditional, so our mother station, what do we call this? Home station?
Yeah. Okay.
Is in Milwaukee. Flagship station is in the Milwaukee area, Wisconsin, which is southeastern Wisconsin. And it's typically like growing season here is like Memorial Day. It used to be till Labor Day, but now it's kind of stretched beyond that. So Memorial Day weekend,
for you time. Now, currently now we garden as soon as we can get in, which can be late April, late March.
But for a lot of people,
that's a traditional time frame. Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. So we would, put the seeds in the ground Memorial Day, and then by August we would have tomatoes and, other things sooner, etc. And it just worked out. So that's how I got into gardening. And then I met Joey, and him and I had a little tiny container garden for a while. Mm-hmm. But how did you get into gardening?
Grew up on a farm in Southern Illinois. Always had a garden as long as from day one, and we had a very mature grape vine system, canning grapes. We had a garden. I would say it was probably, we had 3 different areas of gardening, so considerable gardening. And we canned everything. We never bought ketchup. If you could can it, it got canned. We would find, on the farm we had blackberries, so we'd freeze them. We had animals, so we would have those butchered. So we always, back to my earlier point on segment 1, farmers can be poor but never know they're poor because of the resources in which they have available to them. Freezer full of meat, pantry full of canned goods, that type of thing. Always had a garden, and you grew the staples: pole beans, peas, watermelon, tomatoes, cucumbers. That was the staple. Nothing outlandishly odd or unique. It was just the traditional things that you would see in a garden, or what people may realize or would say, "Hey, give me 5 things that you would see in a garden." Boom, boom. That's what we grew. My story is not as big as yours, I guess.
I guess not.
No. Let's see here. You grew a goth garden on the porch this year. This was the first year you ever attempted this. First of all, what is that, and how did it turn out? And what are you going to do different, if anything, next year?
So a goth garden, it's like a little like theme garden, I guess. Any sort of theme. You could grow an all purple flower garden.
Right.
Goth garden was just flowers that were more dark.
It's just a title given. It's not a spiritual whatever you want to go down that road.
Goth doesn't mean anything.
No, I know.
Anyway. So it's just like I grew dark flowers. Mm-hmm. I grew black petunias and some like very, very dark colored sunflowers.
Which you started indoors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which you got mad about.
Because,
but they grew beautifully.
Because somebody forgot to water them. But anyway, go ahead.
So anyway.
Yeah.
And then I grew some petunias, pansies, or like violas. And then I tried to grow some cosmos, but those never took off. So I need to do a little bit more research and figure out, especially like the cosmos. And I think I had some zinnias that never took off either. So I need to figure out maybe why those didn't take off.
You know who else grows petunias?
Who?
Andy Griffith.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I was very happy with that. Also, we had like a weird summer where it was either raining or not raining.
Right.
Or it was hot or raining. That was pretty much it. Then, unfortunately, in August, I got really sick with a really bad asthma flare. So I didn't really tend to watering. I didn't have a lot of extra energy for stuff. So I didn't water as much as I should have.
But at that time, the sunflowers had pretty much spent out anyway.
But I don't know if like the zinnias and the cosmos would have done better.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. But yeah, overall, I was pretty happy with it, especially the sunflowers. I love sunflowers. And so having them on the porch there, and then I would sit outside or like take a little cute selfie with the sunflowers, etc. So that was majorly cool. I'll probably grow more sunflowers. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy. So I have a question for you. You did most of our vegetable gardening this year, which thank you, by the way. What would you say maybe some successes and failures?
The successes was the knowledge on how to do things better next year. We used weed barrier to keep the weeds down, and it did not work the way we had wanted it to work. It made the soil too hot and it stunted some of the plants. We did not start tomatoes. We planted them directly in the ground, which we did the previous year and worked well without any weed barrier. We dropped the seeds in the ground, had the irrigation from Dripworks on, worked fine. So we learned that the weed barrier is not a successful thing in the vegetable garden in the way we are growing. So we will rip that weed barrier out. It was a financial, we had to pay for it, but it taught us some things. And we'll just deal with the weeds next year in order to have lush tomato plants and peppers and eggplants and green beans. So that is what was the failure, but the success in the same way. You can have failures, but if you don't learn from them, you can't be successful.
That sounds like how you would answer like an interview question, like a job interview question. Okay, anyway. So that was the success and the failure?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so we're close to wrapping up our 8th season. Our 8th season, right? Yeah.
Yep, 8th season.
So what would you say, we can do this part first. What's your favorite thing about hosting the radio show?
Sharing the information with people around the world. We are on 18 AM and FM terrestrial radio stations in parts of 18 states this year. And not only that, but we have downloads from all 50 states and over 100 plus countries around the world. So though we may never ever speak, you and I, who are listening, you may just tune in because you enjoy the banter between Holly and myself, or the knowledge, because we've had radio stations, their managers whom we've talked to and we have communicated. Oh, so and so called the station and really liked the way we interact. They said they don't even grow a garden; they tune in simply to hear the show. So we appealed to many different people, and with our program, it's not just having music on in the background as a background noise. Typically, the majority of people who are tuning in live on the radio or watching on YouTube replay or podcast replay are tuning in for a specific reason, to gain knowledge about a certain topic in which we are covering. So, there.
All right. So
what about you?
My favorite
was that too
thing,
political?
No, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
My favorite thing is just I like the interviews with our guests. I feel like I always learn something.
Well, yeah, we bring on people that know more than we do in order for all of us to learn together.
And it just keeps it, like, I think, a little fresh, interactive, whatever.
And you can ask each guest the same question, and they have a totally different answer to the same question. Yeah,
I agree. So, what's your least favorite thing
about what, the show?
Yeah, hosting the show.
I guess the least favorite thing is the we have complete control over the show. For people who are not familiar with how this operates, the only thing we don't do is push the button at the station and make it go on the air. We have complete control. So we spend about 1,000 hours a year and about 15,000 emails and email nearly 2,000 companies in order to get the 20 to 32 companies each year that says, yes, we like what you're doing. We'll support you financially because we have to pay for the airtime on all the stations in order for you to hear our show. So that aspect of it is not the most enjoyable, spending 8-9 hours a day pushing emails and getting about 1,100 to 1,200 no's a year. That part is not the most enjoyable. If I was a mind reader, I would just email the 32 companies who are going to say yes, and then take the next 6 months off.
So my least favorite thing, I think at times, is doing the behind the scenes work of coming up with the questions for the guests. Not that I hate it. It's just that I work a very
Some people may not know that we provide the questions for the guests.
Oh yeah. Or just like sometimes
and that's just a respectful thing as a host. That here's what we're going to talk about, generality, and then we'll dive in off something that they say.
Right, and I know I like coming up with the questions, but the thing is that I work a full-time job separately. This is not my full-time job, and I enjoy my work, but it's very brain heavy at times. It can be a
lot of data,
mentally draining, whatever. A lot of kind of science, whatever. So I'm like, okay, now I do have to do this, and I do that, and then I have to do the questions. I try to give myself a break in between, but sometimes we're coming up with radio show topics with Joey or guests or whatever. Sometimes that part can be a little bit draining. I still love it. I still enjoy it, but it's not my favorite part.
There's a lot of work to go in to make a 55 to 59 minute show each week. And it takes a lot of time. What you hear on your radio right now, through your podcast, on YouTube, is about 5% of what actually takes place in order for you to hear the show. There's negotiations with stations. There's getting a hold of news stations. There's the whole deal. So more behind the scenes than you realize, but there's a lot. And we're who we are. We're not,
But it's never dull. It's never dull.
We are
it's never dull.
No. And we, based on conversations I've had with individuals in this industry, we are the only people doing it the way we're doing it. We don't have a team somewhere that spends 40 hours a week, 10 people mass calling and emailing me. It's just you and I. That's it.
I will say
there's nobody else in this industry doing what we're doing to the magnitude we're doing.
I will say that at the end of October, when we have after we're done with our last show, I'm like, oh, it's nice to get a little bit of time back. But then
start
February,
ramping up.
Yeah, come February, I'm kind of itching to get back on the air in a way. I mean, just because it does kind of feel like you start to feel spring-like again, and it's right around the corner and whatever. And I like winter, but it definitely is refreshing, and it's something. It's consistently something we do, but at the same time, like I said, there's never a dull moment, and it's always kind of something different. So
people ask us, why don't you go year round? We go 35 weeks, March through October, because one, we need a break, and two, I've talked to people who have radio shows that go year round, and nobody cares Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Day about gardening.
And that's the thing is I like to enjoy things in my life. Not that I don't enjoy this, but we do need the break. And there's those holidays and our birthdays and things like that during that time.
And financially, it would just be a headache to try to fulfill that.
I would like to have
requirement as well.
I would like to be able to focus on those and not focus on trying to do this. So
that's a little bit about who we are. You got a lot of information behind the scenes how this program works that you may not have. So there you go. Some people won't share that with you. We got nothing to hide.